Just imagine that you spend the entire night dancing, performing 30 different dances with 20 unique partners. And then, suddenly, with this one specific person, something truly extraordinary happens that never once occurred with any of the other 19. There is absolutely no explanation and no warning. It is simply pure magic. And afterwards, you find yourself asking, why was it this particular person? Why not the others? What happened there? And I claim that it has nothing to do with skill, nothing to do with technique, nothing to do with experience. It all has to do with your nervous system and with something that is decided in the first 3 seconds of physical contact. And most dancers don't know this. A warm welcome. Welcome to the Bachata Café, a podcast about dance, intimacy, and psychology. I'm Eddie. Welcome to the Bachata Café. Last week, we talked about dance crushes and why you fall in love while dancing bachata and why it's usually just an illusion. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, make sure to catch up. Today, we're going a bit deeper. We're no longer asking why you fall in love. We're asking why does it even arise? Whether this feeling of magic happens instantly with some people, only after 100 dances with others, and with some not even after 1,000 or 2,000 dances, or maybe never at all. And the answer will surprise you, and for some it might even be uncomfortable. Let me describe both sides to you first. I believe every dancer knows both sides. Side number one, you dance with someone and everything just flows, also known as flow. And that happens from the very first step. And the lead is clear but not controlling, not overwhelming. And the following is soft, it's reactive but not passive. And you both breathe in the same rhythm without even noticing it. You don't think about technique. You don't think about the next move. You're simply present. And that's magic. The second side, you dance with someone and it's just work. Everything looks good on paper. The person is good, technically better than many others that evening. But something is missing. And you're stuck in your head. You're thinking, you're waiting for the song to end. And afterwards, you don't even know why. And that's dancing without magic. Why is that? Is it me? Is it the other person? Is it the music? Is it just the kind of day I'm having? Most of the explanations I hear are, we just don't fit together. Or she's too stiff, or he leads too much, too hard. Or my favorite, I just wasn't having a good day. But those aren't explanations. Those are evasions. Those are excuses. And the real answer is more complicated and at the same time much more fascinating. Let's start with a fact that most dancers don't know. Your nervous system decides within the first 3 seconds of physical contact whether this person is safe or not. Not 3 minutes, not 30 seconds, 3 seconds. And how does it do that? It reads signals that you aren't even consciously aware of. Muscle tension, how someone holds their frame, whether they're soft or rigid, inviting or controlling, their breathing rhythm, body warmth, the quality of the first handshake, whether the person is truly present or mentally somewhere else. And this judgment knows only 2 categories, safe or not safe. And if the judgment is safe, then your nervous system opens up. You become more present, your muscles relax, you listen better to leading or following, and the dance can flow. And if the judgment is not safe, then your nervous system closes. You become more cautious, your muscles tense up, you start to control instead of trust. And the dance becomes work. And that doesn't happen because the other person dances worse. It happens because their nervous system sends signals that your nervous system reads as unsafe. And that is the core of dance floor chemistry. It's not about technique, and it's not about experience either. It's nervous system meets nervous system. Why do some people instantly create energy? That's the question everyone asks themselves. Why do some people instantly create this feeling, but others never do? And there are three factors behind this. And all of them are scientifically proven. And they're all relevant on the dance floor as well. Factor number one is nervous system compatibility. Every person has a baseline level of activation. Psychologists call this the arousal level. Some people are naturally calm and grounded. Others are more activated, energetic, quick. And when two people with similar arousal levels dance together, they synchronize more quickly. There's less adjustment needed, less energy required to get on the same wavelength. And you simply use less energy to be on the same wavelength. And you feel it as, oh, we fit together. But in reality, it's your nervous systems that are compatible. Factor number two, attachment style. And I would say this is the deepest chapter because this is the part where things really get uncomfortable. Because it explains what almost everyone has experienced on the dance floor, but no one can really put into words. Because every person has an attachment style, a pattern for how they experience closeness, connection, and intimacy. And this develops early on through our first relationship experiences. And it shows up everywhere, in friendships, in relationships, and of course, on the dance floor. And the three basic attachment styles are securely attached. So that's closeness that is possible without fear. And these people, they can open up without fear of rejection. They can lead without being controlling. They can follow, yes, without losing themselves, without giving themselves up. And they don't need anything from the dance. They are simply just there. They are simply fully present. And you can feel that immediately. Then there are the anxiously attached. They seek closeness, but it's never enough. And these people unconsciously seek validation through dancing. Did he notice me? Was that good? Does he or she want to dance again? And they're not really in the dance. They observe themselves and wait for a signal that they are okay. They don't cling because they want to, but because deep down they're afraid of being abandoned. And then there are the avoidantly attached. They want closeness, but at the same time they fear it. And this is the most misunderstood style because avoidantly attached people do want closeness. So they really do want closeness and they long for it as well. But as soon as it becomes too real, too close, too intimate, too significant, their system pulls back. Not out of malice, but for self-protection. And on the dance floor, it looks like this. They dance with real intensity, with eye contact, with warmth, with genuine connection. But only as long as it's a dance and as long as it remains at a distance. Because then they can open up completely. And that sometimes or often better than anyone else. And now let's move on to the 4 combinations that are possible from these 3 basic attachment styles. And here we can get specific now. If you like the podcast, follow Bachata Café and become part of our Bachata community. Let's take combination 1, when a secure type and another secure type dance together or get together. That's stable magic that grows. There's no drama here, no push and pull, no waiting for the next dance. Both can open up without needing anything from each other. Both are simply present. And the magic develops more calmly. It's less explosive compared to the other combinations that are coming up now. But it endures and grows with every dance. And it becomes deeper. And that's the kind of magic that is sustainable. It's not the most intense at the beginning, but over time it's the deepest. Now, combination number 2. This is when an anxious person dances or comes together with an avoidant person. Phew, that's the most intense magic. That's truly deep magic. But it's also the most painful. Spiral of them all. You have to imagine an anxiously attached person meets an avoidantly attached person on the dance floor. And the avoidant one opens up because at first it's just a dance. And they give you warmth, eye contact, genuine presence. And they can do that as long as it feels safe and as long as it stays at a distance. And the anxious one thinks finally, someone who is really present. And then the nervous system says, this is it. And it's not just imagination, the connection is real and the magic is real too. But then the spiral begins. I don't want to call it a devilish spiral, but it definitely heads in that direction. Because the anxious one wants more. They want another dance, a message, a sign. And the avoidant one feels pressure and withdraws. Not because they don't want to, but because real attachment overwhelms their system. And the anxious one then interprets this as rejection and tries even harder and puts in even more effort and even more energy. Then they text more often, look more on social media. The person waits for the next dance. And the avoidant one occasionally gives warmth again when the pressure subsides. And then this whole cycle starts all over again. And that is intermittent reinforcement. And that's the same pattern as before. Episode 14, only this time it's not intentional. And that's simply the neurobiology of two attachment systems that just react to each other perfectly or are perfectly attuned to each other. Because the anxious one clings, the avoidant one runs away. The anxious one chases after, and both simply suffer in their own way. But both want the same thing, and neither knows how to hold on to it. Combination number 3. Secure and anxious. It can be healing if the secure one remains steadfast. The secure one gives the anxious one something that the anxious one rarely experiences, namely constant reliability without drama. There are no mind games, no withdrawal, just simply being there. And on the dance floor, it's the anxious one who initially seeks reassurance. But the secure one doesn't need to react. He simply remains present. He is calm, clear, and at some point, the anxious one begins to relax. That's why this combination can be healing. For the anxious one, it's also the first dance that truly feels safe without having to pay a price for it. And then the last combination is when a secure person is with an avoidant. It's calm, clear, and there's no back and forth, no spiraling. And the secure one tries not to cling. He simply offers closeness, but he doesn't need it. So he doesn't need the closeness in return either. And he doesn't demand a reaction. And that gives the avoidant something very rare, namely space. And on the dance floor, it's like this. The avoidant can open up because he doesn't feel that closeness will trap him. Or he feels no pressure. He has no sense of expectation. It's simply just a dance. And this combination can also be healing because for the avoidant, it's often the first contact with closeness that doesn't feel threatening. And now comes the part that most people don't want to hear. You think that you meet these people by chance, at socials, at festivals, at school, in life. It's not a coincidence. You always attract the compatible counterpart, the matching pattern to your own unresolved issue, or maybe even several issues. And that's not sometimes, that's always. It's resonance. And the anxious person attracts the avoidant one because their system knows exactly this frequency, because it feels familiar, because the intensity of this dynamic is the only proof their nervous system recognizes as real connection. And the avoidant person attracts the anxious one because their neediness activates their own pattern. Because the moment when he gives warmth and the other person blossoms, that feels like strength. And because he knows unconsciously that this person won't let go, which at the same time is both his greatest nightmare and, in some way, his secret wish. And you don't attract the person you want, you attract the person who matches your inner world. And this is not a judgment, it's information. Because if you know which pattern you attract, you also know which pattern within you is still unresolved. This explosive initial magic, that's not a sign of compatibility. It's a sign that two patterns have found each other that react perfectly to one another. These are two wounds that recognize each other and have always known each other. That was a deep dive into the second factor. Now we're missing the third factor, namely presence. And it's the only factor you can directly influence. When someone is truly present, fully in the moment, not in their thoughts, not thinking about the next move, the nervous system senses it immediately. And presence sends signals of safety. Presence says, I am here just for this dance, just for you. And that's the feeling you know as magic. True magic is the result of a deep sense of true presence, but it must exist on both sides. And that is exactly why the very same person can create magic one night and not on another, simply because presence is not a fixed or permanent constant. It depends on how you're feeling today. Are you stressed? Are you in your head? Are you really on the dance floor? Or are you somewhere else entirely? And now let's get to the uncomfortable truth. Sometimes the magic is missing, not because of the other person, but because of you. I know what you're thinking right now. Eddie, I'm still present. I still love to dance. I'm still open. Yes, maybe. But ask yourself 3 questions. First question, are you truly without expectation when you dance? Or are you waiting for the other person to deliver something? Magic, connection, the right feeling? Because if you're waiting, you're not present. You're just a spectator of your own dance. Second question, do you open up in the first 3 seconds? Or do you first test whether the other person is worth it? Many dancers unconsciously develop a protective wall. They only open up once the other person has proven that they're good. But by doing that, they prevent exactly the connection they're looking for. And you can't expect magic if you do not open yourself up to others. Third question, and this is the toughest question. Are you truly in the dance or are you performing? Performance and presence are mutually exclusive. If you're thinking in the back of your mind, how do I look right now? Is someone watching me? Then you're not in the dance. And the person in front of you feels that, even without words. Sometimes magic isn't magic, sometimes it's projection. Your brain stores experiences, smells, movement patterns, the way someone holds their head. And when you meet someone on the dance floor who unconsciously reminds you of a person from your past, then it projects the conversation, the stored feeling onto this person. And you think, wow, everything is just right with this person. But in reality, your brain has recognized someone from your past. And that explains why the magic sometimes suddenly disappears during the second dance. The projection dissolves. And that doesn't make the experience any less beautiful, but it explains it. Now let's get to the real twist. And this is important. I'm not saying that magic doesn't exist. It does exist. I know dancers who experience it regularly. I have experienced it myself, especially combination 2. And the difference is magic is not a coincidence. And it's also not a question of compatibility that you either have or you don't. Magic is a state, and states can be trained. Nervous system regulation can be learned. That means first arrive before you step onto the dance floor. You can do breathing exercises, you can become aware of your body. And attachment styles can also be changed, not overnight, but through awareness. If you recognize yourself in the anxious or avoidant type, it's not a judgment because that's the first step toward realization. Presence can be trained. Every dance is an opportunity to become more present, not better, more present. And you don't have to wait for the right person to experience magic. You can learn to create it more often. Not always, not with everyone, but more often than you think. Reality check. I'll give you 4 questions that you can ask yourself after every dance without magic and answer honestly. Question number 1. Was I really present or was I in my head? Because if you can't describe exactly what happened in the last 3 minutes, then you simply weren't present. Question number 2. Did I open up or did I wait? The opening has to come first. If you wait for the other person to create magic, you'll usually end up waiting in vain your whole life. Question number 3. What did my nervous system pick up in the first 3 seconds? Don't judge, just observe. Notice the tension, the opening. That gives you information about yourself, not about the other person. Last question, number 4. Did I perform or did I dance? Performance is directed outward, dance is directed inward, and also toward the person standing in front of you. And not every dance has to be magical. A good dance without magic is still a good dance. Magic is the treat. It's the icing on the cake, or rather the cherry on top of the icing. So it's not the goal. And whoever has made magic a requirement, or let's say makes magic a requirement, will miss out on 90% of their dances. You might not always enjoy them. And paradoxically, the less you simply try to force magic, the more often it naturally begins to arise. Magic is real on the dance floor, but it's not a mystery since its causes are known. Nervous system, attachment style, presence, projection, resonance. And these are the forces that determine whether a dance flows or not. And most importantly, you don't attract the person you want. You attract the person who matches your inner world. And that can be a gift or a mirror. Most of the time, it's both. And you don't wait for the right person to experience magic. You become the person who creates magic. And that's the difference between a dancer and a dancer who is never forgotten. And that's exactly what makes bachata so special. A question for the comments. Which attachment style do you recognize in yourself? And which pattern do you keep attracting on the dance floor? Write it down in the comments below. I read everything. That was the Bachata Café. I'm Eddie. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode, send it to a dancer from your bachata community. Write in the comments what your thoughts are on today's topic. And if you want to learn more about bachata, connection, and psychology, follow the Bachata Café. If you want to be part of the Bachata Café community, we'll see each other on the dance floor.